Nuclear weapons are mankind's most deadly creation, period. But also, one of the few reasons World War III is not here yet. Today, we will answer a question that is at least controversial. Should nuclear weapons be abolished, or are they a necessary evil? In July 1945, after the successful test of the Trinity, the first atomic bomb in history, the United States, knowing that Japan was far from surrendering in the Pacific, had two options: invade the main islands with a force of almost 2 million soldiers, which according to estimates and the experience gained in Okinawa, could result in the death of almost 10 million Japanese, or launch their new atomic bombs against targets in that country, hoping that their power and destructive capacity would lead Emperor Hirohito to ask for an end to the war. Of course, many other factors were involved in President Truman's decision to drop the bombs, such as showing Stalin that the United States had a new and revolutionary bomb and would not hesitate to use it against their enemies. The two atomic bombs dropped on Japan completely destroyed the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, causing terrible casualties, especially among the civilian population, but they played a decisive role in ending a war that promised to extend for at least 2 or 3 more years. In addition to contributing to the early end of the Pacific War, the atomic bombs also prevented the war from returning to Europe. In 1945, Stalin had more soldiers, tanks, planes, and artillery than all European countries combined. Therefore, if he wanted, he could have used all that overwhelming power to extend Soviet domination over Central Europe. However, since at that time, America was the only country with atomic bombs in its arsenal and had already shown in Japan that it had no qualms about using them, the first demonstration of nuclear deterrence in history emerged. Some years later, in 1951, shortly after China entered the Korean War on the side of the North, the then Commander-in-Chief of the UN forces on the Korean Peninsula, General Douglas MacArthur, fearing that new waves of Chinese soldiers on the battlefield would be able to expel UN forces from the territory, began pressuring President Truman to authorize the use of atomic bombs against China. However, President Truman did not consider fulfilling this request because he knew that the Soviet Union already had atomic bombs in 1951 and feared that Moscow would launch new weapons of mass destruction in retaliation against targets in Europe and Asia. The pressure from General MacArthur was so great that in April 1951, he was dismissed from his post as Commander-in-Chief in Korea. During the Cold War, especially after the development of intercontinental ballistic missiles in the late 1950s, the US and the USSR, each with tens of thousands of warheads ready for immediate use, knew that if one side gave the order to attack, the other would respond in the same way. Because of this impasse, the famous expression known by the acronym MAD, for Mutual Assured Destruction, was born. Therefore, despite their huge arsenals and the development of missiles with increasing range and capabilities, nuclear weapons were never employed on the battlefield, even with the United States facing great difficulties in Vietnam between the 1960s and 1970s, and even with the Soviets unable to end Afghan resistance in the 1980s. Another important detail is that at no time in history, after the invention of the atomic bomb, did America and Russia directly confront each other on the battlefield, with the confrontation being limited to proxy wars through other countries. As you may have noticed, nuclear weapons play an important role in maintaining geopolitical stability. When countries possess nuclear weapons, they are less likely to engage in conventional military conflicts, as the potential for escalation to a nuclear conflict is too great. This can help prevent conflicts from spiraling out of control and causing widespread destruction and loss of life. Of course, nuclear weapons are not without their risks. The potential for accidental launch or miscalculation is a constant threat, and the consequences of a nuclear conflict would be catastrophic for all involved. Also, in recent years, there have been concerns over the potential for non-state actors, such as terrorist groups, to obtain nuclear weapons or material, and the need for increased security measures to prevent this from happening. There is also ongoing debate over the role of nuclear weapons in modern warfare, and whether they are still necessary for deterrence in a world where other forms of military technology have advanced. However, the fact remains that nuclear deterrence has been effective in preventing nuclear war for over 70 years. As long as nuclear weapons exist, their deterrence power will continue to play an important role in preventing nuclear conflicts and maintaining global stability. So yes, it is necessary evil. Please don't forget to subscribe for more. Thank you very much.